The first thing I noticed about the theme park was that the lights were still on. Not all of them, just a few. A row of weak yellow bulbs along the entrance flickered in the darkness, turning on and off at irregular intervals. From the road, they looked almost like candles. The rest of the park was completely black. The sign above the entrance had lost most of its letters. Only a few remained visible beneath years of dirt and rust. Land ****. I had passed this place dozens of times when I was younger. Back then, it was one of the busiest attractions in the area. Families came here on weekends. Children lined up for the roller coaster. Couples took pictures beside the giant carousel. At night, the entire park could be seen from miles away. Then one summer night, everything stopped. The park closed without much explanation. The official story was that the company had financial problems. But people who lived nearby told a different story. They said something happened during the final night. Something bad enough that the park never reopened. I didn't believe any of that. At least, I didn't when I accepted the job. My name is Daniel. At the time, I worked for a small security company that handled temporary inspections for abandoned properties. 3 days before I went to the park, my supervisor called me into his office. He gave me a key. "You're going in alone?" I remember asking that because he wouldn't look at me when he answered. "It's just an inspection." "How long?" "An hour. Maybe 2. He slid a folder across the desk. There was a map of the park inside. The job was simple. Enter through the main gate. Check the electrical room. Walk through the maintenance area. Make sure there were no squatters. Then leave. The demolition company was scheduled to arrive the following week. I asked why they needed someone to inspect a place that was about to be demolished. My supervisor shrugged. "Insurance." That was his entire explanation. I didn't think much of it until he added one more thing. "If you hear the rides running, don't investigate." I laughed. He didn't. "Seriously, Daniel." That was the first moment I felt something was wrong. Still, I went. I arrived at the park just after 10:30 p.m. There were no cars in the parking lot, no nearby houses, no streetlights, just a long stretch of cracked asphalt disappearing into the trees. I parked my truck outside the main gate and grabbed my flashlight. The air smelled wet. It had rained earlier that evening, and the wind was pushing mist across the entrance. I unlocked the gate. The chain came loose with a loud metallic snap. Then I pushed the gate open. It made a long scraping sound against the ground. I stepped inside. Immediately, my flashlight caught something hanging from the entrance booth. A small plastic sign. "Welcome." The word was almost completely faded. Underneath it was another sign. "Please keep your ticket." I remember thinking how strange that was. The park hadn't sold tickets in years. I walked toward the main avenue. Everything was exactly where the old map said it would be. The food court was on the left. The arcade was on the right. The carousel was straight ahead. And beyond it, rising above the trees, was the roller coaster. The tracks looked enormous in the darkness. Rust covered the metal supports. Several sections of the track had collapsed. I stopped for a moment and looked up. There was something strangely unsettling about seeing a roller coaster without hearing people. No screaming, no music, no mechanical noise, just wind moving through the trees. I continued walking. My boots splashed through puddles that had formed on the pavement. Every few meters, my flashlight found another reminder of what the place used to be. A child's shoe, a broken stuffed animal, an old menu board, a photograph booth with its glass smashed. Then I saw the carousel. It was surrounded by a metal fence. The horses were still there. Some were missing pieces of paint. Some had cracked faces. One had no head. I walked closer. There was something written on the fence. A warning. "Do not enter." I took a picture of it. Then I heard a sound. A faint metallic click. I froze. Click, click, click. It was coming from the carousel. I pointed my flashlight toward it. Nothing moved. I waited. The sound stopped. I told myself it was probably loose metal moving in the wind. Then I noticed something. One of the carousel horses was wet. Not dirty. Wet. Water was dripping from its mouth onto the platform. I stepped closer. There was no rain falling. I touched the horse. Cold, extremely cold, and beneath its chin, I saw something that looked like a handprint. A small one, like a child's hand. I pulled my hand away. That's when the music started, very quietly. At first, I thought it was coming from my phone, but my phone was in my pocket. The sound was coming from the carousel. An old melody began playing through a damaged speaker. Slow, distorted, almost underwater. The carousel didn't move. Only the music played. I immediately remembered what my supervisor had told me. If you hear the rides running, don't investigate. I turned around. I decided to leave. I had already seen enough. But when I reached the main avenue, I stopped. Something was different. The entrance gate was no longer visible. I couldn't see the road. I couldn't see my truck. Only darkness. I raised my flashlight. The beam disappeared into the mist. Then, somewhere behind me, a speaker crackled. A woman's voice came through. Old, distorted, but understandable. Attention, guests. I turned slowly. The speaker continued. Please remain inside the park. I stared at the carousel. Its lights had turned on. One bulb, then another, until the entire carousel was glowing. But it still wasn't moving. The voice spoke again. Tonight's final ride will begin shortly. I didn't move. Then I heard something behind me. A child's laughter. Very close. I turned around. Nothing. Just an empty path. I took one step backward, then another. My flashlight suddenly flickered. For a second, the entire park went black. When the light came back, there was a person standing at the end of the path. A little girl. She was facing away from me. She wore an old-fashioned yellow raincoat. Her hair was soaked, and she was standing completely still. I called out, "Hey!" She didn't move. "Are you okay?" Nothing. I took a few steps toward her. Then she slowly raised one arm. She pointed toward the roller coaster, and without turning around, she said, "He's waiting for you." The lights across the park suddenly came on. Every single one. The food court, the arcade, the game booths, the roller coaster, and then the carousel began to turn. I looked back at the girl. She was gone. There were no footprints. Nothing. Only the empty path. Then I heard the sound of a roller coaster climbing. Click, click, click. Slowly, mechanically. The old coaster was moving up the track. I stood there, unable to breathe. The problem was, there was no power connected to the park. The electrical system had been disconnected years ago. And yet, above me, the roller coaster continued climbing. Click, 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 until it reached the highest point. Then everything stopped. For several seconds, there was complete silence. And from somewhere inside the darkness, I heard people screaming. Not one person. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. The screams echoed through the abandoned park as if the place had suddenly become crowded again. Then the roller coaster dropped, and the entire park went black. The last ride, the screaming stopped the moment the roller coaster disappeared into the darkness. I stood frozen in the middle of the main avenue, staring at the tracks. For several seconds, I couldn't hear anything except my own breathing. Then came another sound. Laughter. Children laughing somewhere near the arcade. I turned toward it. My first instinct was to run back to the entrance. But I still couldn't see the gate. The fog had become thicker, covering the road I had entered through. I pulled my phone from my pocket. No signal. I tried calling my supervisor anyway. The call didn't even attempt to connect. I looked at the time. 10:57 p.m. Only a few minutes had passed since I entered. It felt like hours. I decided to follow the main road. If I kept walking straight, I should eventually reach the entrance. That was the plan. I didn't care about the inspection anymore. I just wanted to get out. As I walked past the food court, I noticed something strange. The old signs were glowing. Not brightly, just enough to read. Burgers, ice cream, cotton candy. I stopped. Every shop was supposed to be abandoned. But then I smelled something. Popcorn. Fresh popcorn. The smell was so strong that for a moment I wondered if someone was actually inside. I approached the nearest food stall. The metal shutters were down. I looked through the small opening underneath. There was a light inside, a warm yellow light, and behind the counter sat a man. He was wearing an old park employee uniform. His back was facing me. I knocked on the metal shutter. The man didn't react. I knocked again. Nothing. Then he slowly turned his head. Not his body, just his head. I couldn't see his face, only the side of it. "Excuse me?" He stood up. The chair scraped across the floor. Then he walked toward the shutter. I stepped backward. The man stopped on the other side. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he said something, very quietly. "Your ticket." I looked down. There was something in my hand. I hadn't noticed it before. A small paper ticket, old and yellow. I turned it over. Printed on the front was a date. July 14th, 1998. I felt my stomach drop. That date meant nothing to me. But I knew one thing. The park had closed decades ago. I looked back at the employee. He was no longer standing there. The food stall was empty. The light was gone. I ran. I didn't care where I was going. I just ran down the avenue. Then I saw the arcade. The doors were open. Every machine inside was turned on. The screens were flashing. Some displayed games I remembered from childhood. Others were games I had never seen before. There was no sound coming from them, except one machine, a racing game. Its screen showed a roller coaster. I walked closer. The game wasn't displaying a menu. It was showing live footage. I recognized the image immediately. It was the roller coaster outside. The camera appeared to be mounted on the front car. The screen showed the track from the rider's perspective. The coaster was climbing. Slowly. Click, click, click. I looked through the arcade window. The actual coaster was moving at the same time. I watched the screen. Then something appeared in the bottom corner. A number. 13 it changed. 1211 I didn't understand. Then I noticed something else. There were names appearing across the screen, one after another. Michael, Sarah, David, Linda. I recognized none of them. Then the next name appeared. Daniel. I stopped breathing. The number changed. 10 I backed away from the machine. The screen suddenly went black. Then a message appeared. Please take your seat. The arcade doors slammed shut behind me. I ran to them and pulled the handles. Locked. I hit the glass. Nothing. Then all the machines turned toward me. Their screens changed at exactly the same time. Every screen showed the same image. Me, standing inside the arcade. But the image wasn't from the cameras. It showed me from behind. And behind me, someone was standing. I slowly turned around. Nothing. I looked at the screen again. The figure was still there. A little girl. Yellow raincoat. Standing only a few feet behind me. I spun around. Empty. I looked back at the screen. She was closer. I could see her face now. Her eyes were completely black. Then every screen went dark. The arcade doors unlocked. I didn't wait. I ran outside. The fog had become almost impossible to see through. But there was one thing I could see clearly. The carousel. It was still turning. Faster now. The horses were moving up and down. And there were people riding them. At first, I thought they were mannequins. Then one of them screamed. I stopped. There were at least 10 people on the carousel. Men, women, children. They were dressed strangely. Old clothes. Some looked like they belonged in the 1990s. They were all facing outward. All of them were completely silent. Except for one, a young boy. He was staring directly at me. His mouth was moving. I couldn't hear him. Then the carousel slowed. The boy raised his hand. He pointed toward the maintenance building. I remembered the map. That building was next to the electrical room. The place I was supposed to inspect. I didn't want to go there, but somehow I knew I had to. I walked toward it. The closer I got, the colder the air became. The maintenance building was covered in vines. The door was already open. Inside, I found rows of old control panels. Most of them were dead, but one machine had power. A small monitor was glowing. I walked closer. The screen displayed a security camera feed. Camera 01. The main entrance. I saw myself entering the park. Then camera 02. The food court. I saw myself standing outside the shutter. Camera 03. The arcade. I saw myself inside. Camera 04. The carousel. I saw the riders. But there was something wrong. The footage was dated. July 14th, 1998. I stared at the screen. The people on the carousel weren't appearing tonight. They had been recorded almost 30 years ago. I changed the camera. Camera 05. Roller coaster. The footage showed the same ride. The same people. The same screams. Then the screen changed. A new camera appeared. Camera 17. I didn't remember seeing that camera on the map. The image showed a dark corridor. At the end of it was a door. Someone was standing in front of the door. The little girl. She turned toward the camera. Then she pointed behind her. At the door, the screen flickered. A message appeared. Final ride, 11:00 p.m. I looked at my phone. 10:59 p.m. I heard a sound outside. A bell. One single bell. Then the park speaker came alive. Dear guests. The woman's voice was clearer this time. Please proceed to the roller coaster. I stepped away from the monitor. No. The speaker crackled. Your ride is ready. Then every light in the maintenance building turned off. I was standing in complete darkness. Something moved behind me. I heard footsteps. Slow. Barefoot. Coming closer. I turned on my flashlight. Nothing. Then my light pointed toward the wall. There was writing on it. Fresh writing. The letters looked like they had been scratched into the paint. The last person who enters must stay. I heard another sound. A train. The roller coaster. It was coming toward the station. I ran outside. The coaster was waiting. The cars were empty, except for one seat. The front seat. The restraint was already raised. And beside the station stood the little girl in the yellow raincoat. This time she was facing me. She smiled. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. You're late. Behind her, the station clock changed to 11:00 p.m. and the roller coaster doors opened. I didn't get into the roller coaster. I ran. I jumped over the railing and sprinted away from the station as fast as I could. Behind me, I heard the restraint bars slam down. Then the coaster started moving. I didn't look back. The sound of the wheels grew louder as it passed behind me. Then came the screams. Not from the people on the ride. From the speakers. Dozens of voices screaming at once. I ran toward the maintenance building. I thought maybe I could find another exit. But when I reached the door, it was gone. The entire building had disappeared. In its place was a concrete wall covered with vines. I stopped. I turned around. The park looked completely different. The food court was gone. The arcade was gone. Even the carousel had disappeared. I was standing in a version of the theme park that looked much older. The pavement was cracked. The buildings were covered in darkness. And the only thing still operating was the roller coaster. I could hear it moving somewhere above the trees. Then my phone vibrated. I nearly dropped it. The screen showed a notification. New message. Unknown number. I opened it. There was only one sentence. You were never hired to inspect the park. I stared at the message. Another one appeared. You were hired to replace him. Then a photograph arrived. It showed the entrance of the theme park. But the photograph was taken in 1998. A crowd of people stood outside. Families, children, park employees, and in the center of the crowd was a man wearing a security uniform. I recognized the uniform. It was the same uniform my company used. I zoomed in. The man's face became clearer. He looked familiar, not because I had met him, because I had seen his photograph before. It was hanging in my supervisor's office. I suddenly remembered something. The photograph wasn't decoration. It had been sitting on the wall behind his desk. My supervisor had never explained who the man was. I called him again. This time the call connected. Daniel, His voice sounded terrified. "Where are you?" "I'm still inside." There was silence. Then he whispered, "You're not supposed to be there. You knew about this." Another silence. "Listen to me. Get to the entrance." "I can't find it." "Follow the music." "What?" "Follow the music. Don't follow the lights." The call ended. I stood there listening. At first, I heard nothing. Then the carousel music started. Very faintly. Somewhere deep inside the park. I followed it. The music became louder as I walked. Eventually, I reached the carousel again. But this time, it wasn't abandoned. The lights were bright. The paint looked new. The horses were clean. Children were riding it. Parents stood around the fence. Employees walked between the crowd. People laughed. Music played. For a moment, I thought I had gone insane. Then I noticed something. Nobody was moving. Everyone was frozen. Every person in the park was completely still. Except one. The little girl. She was standing beside the carousel, still wearing the yellow raincoat. She looked at me. "You came back." I couldn't speak. She walked toward me. "Why?" I finally managed to ask. "Why am I here?" She looked toward the roller coaster. "Because someone has to finish the ride." "What happened here?" She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "That night, the coaster stopped." I looked at the roller coaster. She continued, "Everyone thought it was an accident." "Wasn't it?" She shook her head. "The ride was never supposed to stop." I didn't understand. She pointed toward the station. One person was missing. "Who?" She looked directly into my eyes. "The operator." A cold feeling spread through me. The security guard found him. She paused. He was dead. I looked around the frozen park. "What does that have to do with me?" The girl smiled. "He was the last person to enter the park." I suddenly remembered the photograph. The security guard. The man in my supervisor's office. He had disappeared after the accident. Nobody ever found him. Until now. I looked at the girl. "Where is he?" She pointed behind me. I turned. The man from the photograph was standing at the end of the path, wearing the old security uniform. His face was pale. His eyes were completely black. He started walking toward me. Slowly. I stepped backward. The girl whispered, "Run." I didn't need to be told twice. I ran toward the entrance. This time I could see it. The gate was there. My truck was visible beyond it. The road was only a few hundred meters away. I sprinted. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Then came the sound of the roller coaster. It was following me. I looked back. The tracks were empty, but something was moving along them. A shadow. Fast. Coming straight toward me. I reached the gate. The chain was wrapped around it. I grabbed it. Pulled. Nothing. The shadow was getting closer. I screamed and pulled again. The chain snapped. The gate opened. I ran through. Then everything stopped. No music. No footsteps. No roller coaster. Nothing. I collapsed beside my truck. It was 11:04 p.m. Only 4 minutes had passed since I received the first message. I drove away without looking back. I didn't return to the park. The next morning, I went to my supervisor's office. He wasn't there. His desk was empty. The photograph was gone. I asked the receptionist where he was. She looked confused. "Who?" "My supervisor." She gave me a strange look. "We don't have a supervisor by that name." I showed her his office. She told me it had been empty for years. I didn't understand, until I found something on my desk. The same yellow ticket, the one I had found inside the park. I turned it over. There was writing on the back. I had never noticed it before. "One ticket, one passenger, one final ride, asterisk asterisk." I quit my job that day. 3 weeks later, the demolition company arrived at the theme park. They found something strange. The main entrance was locked from the inside. The electrical system was still disconnected. There was no electricity anywhere on the property, but the roller coaster was running. According to the workers, it operated for exactly 11 minutes, then stopped. When they inspected the station, they found a single security uniform sitting inside the front car. There was no body, no person, just the uniform. And inside its pocket was a ticket. The date printed on it was July 14th, 1998. The park was demolished shortly afterward. At least, that's what the official records say. But I still receive messages sometimes, always from the same unknown number. Never more than one sentence. The last one arrived 2 months ago. It said, "The park is waiting for its next passenger." I deleted the message. I blocked the number. But that night, at exactly 11 p.m., I heard something outside my house. A faint mechanical sound. Click, 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 like an old roller coaster climbing toward the top of a track. Then came a child's voice from somewhere in the darkness. "Your ride is ready." I never looked outside, and I never will.